Okay, so this is the original track. And this is my remake. What's up guys, Mel here back in the studio, and today I'm going to be running you through my remake of Don't Miss Out by Manse and Blackcode. Now this is an interesting track because I actually created this entire track, well almost like 90% of it, on a live stream last week. And so if you want to go check out the full, from start to finish, how I created this track, pretty much the goal was, obviously I was using samples, but other than that I wanted to make it from scratch. So every single sound I made in any synthesizer, the leads, the chords, the basses, all that stuff, I just made from scratch in that live session. So with that being said, let's take one more quick listen through the track and then we'll jump into the project and see how I made it. Alright, so we're going to start off with the leads. For the leads, I use 3 instances of Serum. I use Silent One a lot, but recently I've been using Serum. And so here they are. You can see all 3 are playing here. This is the first layer, and this is actually a layer I added last, but it sounds like this. Why isn't it playing? It sounds like this. Like I said, I added it last, and I just wanted one saw voice that was just in the center, just to kind of fill up the body of the sound. So it's literally just one voice of saw with a tiny bit of release and a tiny bit of white noise, a little bit of like hyper dimension, so it just widens up the sound a tiny bit. But pretty much I just wanted it to be the center focus in the middle. This is the second one, this layer I created, which is super wide out. It sounds like this. I used both oscillators. The first one is 16 voices of unison, a little bit of detune. The second one has more detune, and it's only 9 voices of unison. Has a little bit of white noise, and then also, maybe you heard, I have the second envelope, which is controlling the pitch, but instead of pitching down like it does in a lot of synths, I actually have it pitching up. So instead of going dot dot and giving it more attack, it kind of has this like whoop, like sucks you into that sound. I'm probably not making any sense, but hopefully you understand that. Tiny bit of EQ, and that's really it. This third patch I made is kind of the more lush sound. It sounds like this. This is kind of the more super saw sound, just to really fill up the body of it. I have oscillator A set to 15 voices of unison, pretty detuned, and then I have the second oscillator all the way up to 16 and really detuned, and it's actually 1 octave up, so it's giving that extra higher octave. I have quite a bit of release on here to give it that lush sound, a tiny bit of white noise as well, and a little bit of distortion and some EQ and just, yeah, a little bit of compression just to kind of warm it all up. Okay, so let's look at processing for a second. First, I have an EQ, just mostly to cut out lows. I have a tiny bit of tweaking here and there. I have Sound Godizer. Originally, I had a little bit of distortion on it, but I decided to go with Sound Godizer and just kind of make the sound a bit beefier. I'm not using it that much. Here is peak control and reverb to create the ducking effect and just make the leads super big and wide and reverby. After the reverb, I have a little bit of OTT, not too much, it's just at 32%. And then I have a couple more corrective EQs, adding a bit more low mids, another one adding some highs, a tiny bit of stereo enhancing, I mean literally just a tiny bit, it's probably not even doing anything. And then over here, going on my effects, I just have a little bit more corrective EQ here, here, and then down here I have kickstart, which is at like 55%, so pretty low sidechain, just because I want the leads to punch through. And then one more trick with the leads is I added, this is just a sample, it's white noise, just from Cashmere, and so I just layered that with the lead. It doesn't have any effects on it other than sidechain, so I'm just routing this to the effects bus, and it's just giving sidechain with the lead. Just to add that extra bit of high crispy end and make the leads really stand out. Next up, we have a few layers of chords. The first one is this Nexus piano. It sounds like this. Here's the preset. It's the Nexus Grand Piano Soft, and it's pretty low in the mix. I just wanted to give a little bit of sort of natural organic characteristic to the chords. Under that, we have the main body of the chords, which sounds like this. This consists of 2 patches I made. The first patch sounds like this. Really some super basic saws, just 1 voice of unison in the center, and then on the second oscillator I have 4 voices of unison, which just has a mid amount of detune on it, tiny bit of white noise, and yeah, a little bit of widening it out with the hyper dimension. So super simple, but just gives a very nice lush chord sound. And then the second one is a bit more kind of super saw. I cut off a lot of the highs. It sounds like this. As you can hear, it's a lot lower in the mix too. I ended up using both oscillators with quite a bit of release, so it really fills out the space. And both of these oscillators are actually from the analog wavetable. So it's very similar to a saw wavetable, but it just has a little more rounded out. So like I said, it cuts off some of that high end. It's not quite as harsh on the ears. Both of those chords are going to the drop chords, this bus right here. I have a little bit of EQ, just cutting out mostly the lows again. Under here I have OTT, which I actually have turned off. I have stereo enhancing to widen the chords up just a tiny bit. Peak controller and reverb, again, just to add a little bit of reverb and just make them a bit wetter. And that's really it. I have this fruity balance, which I don't even think is doing anything. So then under here, I have a couple layers to help support the chords. The first is these pads. They're very low in the mix, but they're just pretty wide, so they kind of help fill out the entire mix and just make it sound more full. Not much processing on it, just mostly cutting out the lows. By the way, these are presets from Nexus. And then below that, I have just a couple extra samples, which sort of go along with the pads. This one is a vocal sample. Another vocal sample. And then this one is kind of like a similar sample, but up a fifth. And all together, I'm going to put the pads in here too. It sounds like this. Okay, moving on to the basses. This is what the main mid basses sound like. So I use 3, I actually made these in silent. This is the first patch I made. Basically, it's just some cut off saws, just 1 voice of unison here, 6 voices of unison, a little bit detuned here, and yeah, nothing in the second part. And I have a low cut filter on there, or sorry, not a low cut, low pass filter. And then so that cuts off some of the highs, a little bit of drive in there, and then a bit of distortion just to add some grittiness back in there. Here is the second patch, sounds like this. Pretty low in the mix, kind of similar sound, but a bit more warmer. I have 4 voices of unison here, 7 voices here, and they're just detuned a bit more with a little bit of release. So yeah, like I said, it just creates a pretty warm sound. And finally down here is the last patch. This patch, I just wanted to add a little bit more grit. I actually used a square wave here, a bit of white noise here, and then over in this other section, I have some more voices of saw, which is actually in a band pass. And then all these are distorted together, a little bit of chorus and some EQ to really bring out some of those mid frequencies. For processing, I have some EQ, just cutting out the lows, a little bit of OTT, just squish it all together, some distortion and compression with sausage or camel crusher. Then below it, I have sausage fattener, which is just beefing up the sound even more. I guess I'm not widening up the sound. I think I'd put some stereo enhancing on there for a little bit, and then I just narrowed it back down. So anyway, that's essentially doing nothing. And then I have patcher, which is just doing a tiny bit of mid-side EQ, probably not that noticeable, but I thought it made a difference. And then this is getting routed to the bass bus, which has side chaining on it. And as you can see, I have a bit of a deeper side chain, about 82% for the mid basses. Lastly, for the instruments, of course, I have a sub bass, which sounds like this. Just a super nice, warm sub bass. It's in Silent 1. This is a sub bass I use for quite a lot of my tracks. It has 2 octaves of sine waves, so a lower octave and 1 octave up, just to fill out the frequencies a bit better. And that is routed to my sub track, cutting out all the highs, adding some distortion, adding some more distortion, fattening up the sound with sausage fattener, And then this has the same side chain as the mid basses, but it's set to 100% instead of 80%. So it's just really cutting out all those low frequencies to allow the kick to punch through. So with all that said and done, I'm going to turn off the drums, and this is what all the instruments sound like by themselves. Okay, drums are pretty simple, but there's a couple little fun things I did in here. First of all, we have the kick. This is just a kick I grabbed out of sample pack from over here. I think it's Lost Volume 2 is what it's called. Then I added some cashmere claps on top of that. Fill out the higher frequencies. I actually have an offbeat clap. And then below that, I have some rides. Down here, I have some uplifters and downlifters and stuff like that, the crash cymbal as well. And it kind of rises back up here. And lastly, I have these couple tracks in the middle. These add just some offbeat percussion and stuff like that, a couple fills. So yeah, those are all the drums. We've already gone through the instruments, so without further ado, I think it's time for a full playthrough of the track. So yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Like I said, if you want to see the full process start to finish of me making this track and kind of see how I approach remakes and creating the sounds and picking out samples and all that stuff, I have the full video. I think it wasn't too long. It was only like an hour and 45 minutes for creating this whole drop. But anyway, that's available on my channel. I can link it down below, or you can go to my channel and click live. I believe there's a section for live videos. So yeah, go check that out. Feel free to leave me a comment down below if you have any questions about this track or anything else, or you can always reach out to me on Instagram, stuff like that. As always, my name is Mel. I will catch you back in the next video. Thanks for watching.